Hello and welcome to the Sullen Art Podcast, brought to you by Frequency House from the Dylan Thomas Birthplace at 5 Cwmdonkin Drive, Uplands, Swansea. I'm Iqbal Malik, and with me as usual are my co-hosts Simon Jones and Chris Horgan.
Good evening.
Hello.
Good evening, gents. Guest for episode 3 is our singer, Amy Sinha.
Good evening.
Good evening. How are we doing?
I'm doing very well, thank you. How are you?
I'm not too bad, not too bad. So I get this is a bit of a reunion for you guys this evening. Simon and Amy, you went to the same school, I believe, didn't you?
I think we did, yes.
We did.
Yes.
Amy was 1 year above me, so yeah, that was... when did you leave?
Yeah, a certain amount of time ago.
Right, so no specific years. But you
Specific, yeah.
but you-
Cards close to the chest.
Yeah, very close. So you went to... Where did you go after that?
Cwmdonkin College.
Cwmdonkin College.
It was a very fun experience, as I'm sure you remember.
I was going to hope that you were going to elaborate on Cwmdonkin College.
Oh, right, sorry. Well,
it's
Cwmdonkin
okay.
was an amazing place. No, I love Cwmdonkin College.
So what did Cwmdonkin College offer you that we'll go back, we'll put a pin in the whole St. Michael's thing. What did Cwmdonkin College offer you that St. Michael's didn't? What was the sort of...
Cwmdonkin offered me music A-level, and at the time St. Michael's just started GCSE, and I hadn't done it, but I had done my grade 5. So then at Cwmdonkin College they said that I could do the A-level.
So what was the grade 5 in then? Is that in a particular instrument or just in music generally, or?
Gosh, I think it was in a particular instrument, but also theory.
Oh, in theory.
Yeah, there was
Right,
loads of
okay.
people that had done grade 8 actually at the college, but I'd only done
Crikey,
grade
that's
5.
pretty impressive. Because I just throw it in there. I got grade 5 on the piano.
Well done.
Thank you. And I got grade 4 on the saxophone.
Oh my God, that's
So,
amazing.
So hang on, you've sat here for the past 2 podcasts when we've talked about music, and you've just not said anything until you've got someone to actually show off to,
Yes.
which is Amy.
Thank you.
Right, okay. There we are.
So I know, I mean, the thing is, I was out to my depth on that last podcast, I'll be honest. Metal, heavy sort of scene.
As we said, it isn't metal.
It isn't metal.
It isn't
It
metal.
isn't metal.
I'm
So,
glad
okay.
you got that one.
So you went to Cwmdonkin College, you did music. So where did you go from there then, sort of education-wise? Did you do the uni thing? 'Cause a little brief forage into your CV. I think you went to Leeds, didn't you?
I did. So after after sixth form, I auditioned for music college and I got into Leeds. And I studied there for 3 years. Graduated in jazz. It was great.
So, I mean, that's it's kind of a bit above my pay grade when we start going into jazz and we start going into the grading. Because, as I said, we put a pin in the whole St. Michael's thing. Obviously, you didn't get dissuaded from doing music when you were in St. Michael's, that you were probably more actively encouraged. So furthermore, what was the grade 5 in? What instrument was it the voice, or did you specialise in a particular instrument?
Gosh, this is going back. At the time, I think I did my grade 5 piano and I was about to do my grade 5 theory, but I think then I did grade 5 singing. And to do music A-level, you need to do a little bit more. So then I did my grade 8 singing. And then because you had to have grade 8 to audition to music college. So I did it quite in a short time.
Did you...
So why music? How did you get into the music? Why did you choose music above everything else?
What, to study
Yeah.
in college or...
Yeah, in general.
Well, I always loved music. I've been singing for like a very young age. I've got 2 older sisters, so very musically inclined, and we always used to sing together and enter talent competitions and things like that. I never really thought that you could do music for a career, in all honesty. I mean, you saw the pop artists and the people, in the limelight, but you never think that you can do it. You either get discovered or you don't. So it's not, and especially in St. Michael's, taking the pin out just slightly.
That's a good callback.
That's a good callback. So they kind of made fun of the whole music thing, really. Do you want to become a pop singer? That was, so that wasn't really encouraged. But at Cwmdonkin College, I mean, they were amazing, absolutely amazing. They kind of dedicated the whole college at the time to music. I mean, I was at the time when Catherine Jenkins was in my class. So we had like great great for 2 years. It was at the best it could be. And yeah, it was great.
But what I like about this situation is you're still doing stuff. You never gave up. You're a lifer, as it were. I mean, like you went for it and you're carrying on with it as well. So, I mean, how would you go about composing a modern jazz piece? Because from someone who plays heavy music and a little bit of blues now and again, there's a road into it. But jazz, you start with standards. Surely it's a very difficult genre to sort of conquer or even break into, and you seem to have done it, quite a bit of it.
Well, I wouldn't say that I've composed jazz specifically. I mean, I studied it, and then it was intensive, especially for singing. I mean, my college at Leeds wasn't the best music college, I've got to be honest, but for jazz at that point, it was brilliant because they had amazing lecturers who, just really into jazz. For vocals, I think I've had a hard run because singers are not very looked on very fondly, and the musicians think that we don't know anything, and they can be a little condescending. So it's been hard going.
But you can read music, so
I can read music. I'm actually quite competent in a lot of things, really. But you'll find that male musicians don't really, they get surprised when you see it that way. But no, I love jazz.
Do you think they feel threatened? Obviously, because if you're coming to the table with what was the highest grade you went to? Did you say it was 5 or 6?
In singing?
Yeah.
8.
So grade 8, you can teach, essentially.
I can teach.
Yeah, you can teach. Is it after 6, or I can't remember what the level is that you can actually teach?
Well, you can teach after 5.
After 5, right. Okay, so you're a couple of grades above what's capable of teaching.
Yeah.
So I would have say to you that it would be a case that whoever that you come towards with that, they're probably intimidated by the fact that you're coming with a hell of a CV to show somebody up if you're getting that sort of negativity.
Well, at the college specifically, everybody had to reach a certain standard, so they had to be grade 8. I mean, to go forward. I mean, now you get musicians who don't go to music college, and maybe, I mean, they think that playing their instrument is like all there is, and anything but, anything other, especially vocalists, they think, they don't know much about music, which actually, okay, some singers, for granted, they don't care about musicians who are backing them, and I am the singer, everybody's going to follow me and love me, and I totally get that. I can be a little bit like that, but then obviously it's about the musicians, and you have to respect, because, you can't be brilliant unless you've got amazing musicians behind you.
You're working as a team, aren't you?
You're working as a team, and I think a lot of people forget that. I think if you're a soloist in any instrument, you kind of think that the focus is all on you. You just get a little bit of a big head.
I'd like to ask you, what is it about jazz? Because I'm known for playing a more heavier style of stuff, a bit more of the alt genres, but jazz is huge for me. I take a huge inspiration from jazz to what I do. Aesthetically, you might not hear it, but it is.
Yeah.
So what attracted you to jazz specifically? Because we've mentioned the genre of jazz quite a bit so far.
I think at the time I didn't know it was jazz. So when I was younger, I just used to watch like TV films and musicals, and obviously they featured in them. And then it's only when I went to Cwmdonkin College that they kind of pushed me towards that genre, because I think I was just really comfortable with it. So it was either classical, and then the next best thing was jazz. So even pop, even in Cwmdonkin College, that was for BTEC.
Right, okay.
Performing arts. So it wasn't encouraged. But yeah.
So your specialism in Leeds was jazz, right? But would you classify yourself as singly a jazz singer?
No,
I didn't think so. The only reason I sort of mentioned that is because, I sort of checked out a few of your songs, and I think there's a lot of influences going on with your music. So, I mean, what other influences do you have then? Because I sort of noticed a bit of country in there as well, a little bit of rock, that kind of thing. How would you describe that?
I think it started, because I've got 2 older sisters. So, I mean, the eldest one is about 7.5 years older. So I got into rock at a young age, and then soul, Whitney Houston and Mariah Carey. So I've got influenced every type of genre. And then, I settled to study jazz, but it's not predominantly what I was interested in. So that's why when I write songs, it's kind of including every genre, including classical as well. Recently, I have got into country rock. So that's where that has come from.
one of the questions I wanted to ask, and I was thinking about this because of my own writing and my own background, essentially, because I come from a sort of dual heritage background, born in London, grown up, lived all my life in Swansea. Mum's Welsh, my dad was from Kenya, East Africa. I just wonder what your sort of cultural background is and whether you feel that informs or contributes or adds to your music sort of generally, really.
Well, my parents from India. They settled here when I was probably 1 year old, but I was born in Wales and brought up in Wales. I haven't been to India that many times, but yeah, I guess so. I mean, my mum, she used to love music in general. She used to play the sitar, so she encouraged us to into singing and then piano, and then we did the violin, and so it was kind of go through a lot of instruments to find out which one we loved. So I guess there was an influence.
Because there was one song in particular, it sort of stood out for me in my mind, and the reason why it stood out was because of you just hear lots of things going on in the background in that. In that particular song.
Yeah.
Sort of deep, bassy notes. It almost felt like, and I'm not 100% sure, but it felt like there was perhaps the sitar being played in the background, or perhaps the tablas or something like that. But it just felt like there was that kind of influence in the piece.
Yeah.
Am I completely off the mark?
No, you are, but I'm not to blame on that. I kind of worked with a producer, Kevin Jones, and I played him my song, and originally I had it just with piano and vocal. And then I was just playing it to him, and he had the whole idea of making it more world music with the violins, and then the sitar, and bringing it in, and it actually really worked. It was.
Were the tablas involved in that as well? Did you have that? Because I could just hear some bass, real bassy tones in the background.
They were an actor. I think he probably put it in, but it wasn't anybody playing it.
Was it your mum's sitar that you used?
No, didn't bring it.
Is it still in operation?
It's not. No, although my sister did bring one back when she went to India, but it kind of got broken on transit.
I was gonna ask you that, because speaking from a guitarist point of view, it's kind of like a big no to try and travel unless you've got the most industrial case possible. So I was wondering how she tried to get that back from India.
It almost survived, but the pumpkin section of it, kind of, because it was made of pumpkin skin, it got broken.
Is there anyone over in the UK that repairs them?
Maybe.
I might have to look into that myself.
Maybe in South Hall.
But there's something about the sitar and the Eastern kind of sounds as well, the Asian sounds, that lends itself well to jazz.
Yeah, it does. I mean, jazz is everything. It incorporates everything. So,
yeah.
First it was blues, wasn't it? And then got turned into jazz. And then everything came following that. So then you would probably have influences.
But it's the sound, the aesthetic of the sounds of those instruments.
Yeah.
Like, there's a certain Middle Eastern jazz that I've listened to, and it's just the melodies, the rhythms, everything about with that instrument, with that genre, it just sounds a bit more haunting, a bit more edgy. I find myself.
Which were the guys you mentioned last week? Because you mentioned a couple of
Bahrainian.
Is it Bahrainian?
Oh, there's Yaz Ahmed, who is a female Bahrainian jazz musician. Who La Saboteur album was the album of the year for me last year. Absolutely brilliant. And I think it's pronounced Doodoo, which is Kuwaiti jazz. Right. I really recommend anyone checking them out because, like I say, it's that jazz, blues, but with like Kuwaiti instrumentation. It's worth listening to. If you haven't listened to them, it's well worth checking them out.
Well, Amy can probably correct me here, because the Eastern scale is microtonal, isn't it? If I remember rightly, whereas the Western scale is different.
Yeah.
So is perhaps the reason why it lends itself is because within jazz you are kind of trying to find that note in between.
Yeah, more chromatic. So I think jazz, and it doesn't really matter what. If you go wrong, as we said, it's not about hitting the right note. Eventually, if you hit the right note, people accept what you're doing, even if you go wrong. I think that's the thing. But yeah, he's got many tones. I mean, Indian music, they tried to, there's one teacher tried to get me into Indian music, and let's get Indian singing. And I was just like, can't do it. It's just so hard. There's so many tones. They're just different than the Western scale. It's, quite tricky.
So with the jazz side of things, how often are you composing, or is that a bit of an ambiguous question? I mean, do you find yourself to be quite prolific at the moment, or do you go through periods where you're, grist to the mill, really going for it, and then you'll have like a bare sort of period over time. I mean, and also further, where are you now in that? Are you in the middle of something at the moment at all?
Well, I went through that. I mean, I didn't start composing until I thought I was like 31. So I wrote my first song, and then I made an album. And so that was in a short amount of time. And then I didn't do anything for, say, about a few years. And then consecutively, I wrote 3 singles and then I put them out. I have written songs. I'm currently writing a few. I'm waiting to be inspired for my next one. I'm not sure. I'm not writing jazz specifically because I'm not in that place at the moment. I'm more into country and rock, and I would like to focus on that.
So you said that you just recently got into country, right?
Yeah.
How did that come about?
I was watching Nashville on TV.
Oh, really?
You know the show?
Okay.
Yeah, I've never seen it. I know what it is, though.
Oh, it's brilliant. I just got so into it. I really loved it, and I just got inspired. And
I've listened to it for years.
Yeah.
I mean, to me, it's like second nature almost, but you said you've just got into it. And I was wondering.
But I have been into it, like proper country. I mean, like Dolly Parton and the others. I can't remember.
Tammy Wynette.
Wynette.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, I used to love them when I was young, but I'm talking like the modern day kind of country, which seems to be quite popular these days.
Your song, You Make Me Believe, so how long ago was that written?
I think I wrote it 2014, and then I recorded it 2016.
Okay. The only reason that sounded like a jump off the point there, but I listened to that and it did sound a lot of country influence in that.
That was a country.
That was awesome. I love that song.
Oh,
I love that song. But so how long? So you say you've been more recently writing, and I'm assuming therefore you mean that prior to that you were performing other songs, or you were singing covers of other songs? Is it? Or?
Well, I was doing jazz, so
Right,
it was
okay.
covers, and I wasn't writing.
Yeah.
My own.
So what was the transition point then in terms of going from other jazz covers, for instance, into essentially your work, your own original writing?
I don't know. I think it's difficult to say, but I think I find jazz, it was so comfortable for so long that I just found it too easy. And I think it was just boring me a little bit. So I just thought I needed a challenge. So then I just thought writing my own stuff was a challenge.
Well, that does happen. I mean, okay, so from somebody who plays heavy and harsh music myself, I mean, I've been in the house here and I do like my folk and I do like my country as well. Because I'm trying to relate to it here. You feel like you've trod the boards, so to speak, so long in, you're in a trench because you've just been going back and forth. So to jump out of that, I commend that, because you do need to challenge yourself. Otherwise, what's the point in being a musician if you just become sort of comfortable and pigeonholed into it? And to truly take inspiration from other genres, that's being a true musician, in my opinion. I mean,
I think because everyone was doing the jazz thing and they just thought they could do it. So you got Rod Stewart, putting out supposed to be a jazz album. It was a swing album. You got Michael Bublé, doing the swing covers.
Yeah, but he sucks.
He grows on you.
Well, I know what you're saying, but it kind of feels like it's shopping list sort of. Hi, I went to Sainsbury's. There was some zucchinis. It's like it's almost like lounge.
But it's for the mass market. And that's what he hit on.
No, I understand that. I mean, it felt like with what Michael Bublé, the Bubble was doing, it was definitely akin to more sort of like the crooner sort of things who's taking this round. So I'm going to say somebody now, and I'm probably going to get kicked out of the room. I think, right, and this will probably surprise you, Seth MacFarlane released like a jazz and a sort of big band CD, and it kills. It's brilliant. He's got a fantastic crooner's voice, but he takes a lot of sort of draws his influences from music hall, believe it or not, which is kind of crazy, musicals and sort of stuff. But I'd be interested to say, so there's quite a few musicians, all contemporary musicians, jumping on this bandwagon. So you said Rod Stewart. Who else would you throw in the mix apart from Shopping List Man?
What's his name? That guy, and that one who presents the
Alexander Armstrong.
That's it. So he did one. So it was just everyone was just throwing it. I'm just going to release the swing album, for Christmas and whatever. So it just got a little bit irritating.
Yeah, because you worked hard at it and studied it and know the form, and to then have somebody who's in a position through something else to sort of go. You can almost imagine their agent going, "I tell you what, Alex. Yeah, what's big this year? Yeah." Jazz. Oh, fantastic. I love jazz. I've got at least one jazz album. So was it kind of that sort of thing that
It
got
was, and I shouldn't have, because that's really bad, because it doesn't belong to me at all, and everyone can do it, and that is quite a bad way to look at it. But the problem is they're not looking at it as it's jazz. They're looking at it as it's just, they think it's jazz. Yeah,
It's just a product,
not.
isn't it?
So it's not. They're not looking at what the songs actually mean. So you got, it's just funny, isn't it? You got pop songs, and then it's like a sad song, and everyone's smiling during a sad song, and you're just thinking, where's the emotion? And that's what they were doing with the song. So it's a sad song, and they're just smiling all the way through. They're talking about heartbreak. Oh, but it's so great. And it's just got a little bit annoying.
So it was akin to, say, Bublé turning up on stage and start going, strange fruits. It's like,
exactly,
so your
like that,
context is so important. It's particularly with Billie Holiday's Strange Fruit, for example. That's the one that jumps because it's of huge cultural significance. That's what you're going with. So this is interesting. So there are these standards within jazz, this is what I'm taking from the conversation, which are written within a time frame in America which have a very important cultural significance, and you felt like, for the want of a better expression, they were being just glossed over. It was like, oh yeah, it's just, just do that sort of thing.
Well, yeah, they weren't focusing on the meaning, and they weren't focusing on where it came from, and not that everybody has to know where everything comes from to sing it, because they don't, but it would be nice to, a lot of these jazz songs have verses. Not a lot of people sing the verses, but yet they set the scene, but they kind of dismiss it as, unnecessary. But so, things like that, it just has no meaning.
Yeah, but you've earned that right to sort of have your nose put out of joint by it, because if you've put the time and effort and studied for it, of course you've got the right.
Yeah, but I chose to do that. It was my choice.
Yeah, like the only thing I could equate it to is, like, say with the sound engineering, somebody turned up with a mobile phone, say for example, to record this. It's like, oh yeah, I'm really into podcasting at the moment. Yeah, here's this potato. I'm going to record it to that. It's
yeah.
It's,
I can, yeah.
You've earned your stripes, so I definitely think you're more than entitled to have an opinion. And listening to your work, yeah, damn right, you're entitled to have your opinion and be forthright about it, because I struggle with this a lot. I go back and forth. Like, yeah, let people have what they want, let them consume what that's fair enough. But that isn't a blank check for crap. There has to be some level of standard, or not standardization, but standards, because otherwise,
Integrity.
Thank you, Chris. I feel like music has become McDonaldized. It's like fast food music. That's what sells at the moment.
Which is what you were making your point with like the Alexander Armstrong albums and the Christmas albums. That's exactly what it is. It's just flavour of the month, let's try and churn it out. And then you've got someone like yourself who approaches it as a craft. Will craft a song as opposed to just, what was the most popular songs in the 50s? Let's modernise it and then put it out and call it my new album. which I'm a huge jazz fan, right? But you can take any genre and you hear it, and it's just, if you're a musician and you craft your own, and it's just like you say, you write your own songs. The songs I write aren't in the same genre as yours, but I totally understand your point, where it's just the easy buck. And then the ones who are crafting hard don't really get a look in.
Yeah, well, yeah.
You've had to earn it though, right? Nothing was given to you.
Yeah, no, it wasn't given to me. You see the most popular people, I guess, on TV, and if you actually dig into their background, they're either related to somebody, or Michael Bublé is related to somebody, I'm sure, I don't remember, but you don't just, it's very rare that people just make it because of their talent. I think a lot goes on behind the people that you see.
Well, that's probably why, shall we say, that jazz and blues early 1920s, 1930s had a lot more credibility to it, because of the way things were in America, the way things were so savagely wrong in America. There's a lot of those people, well, 99.9% of those people were coming up through no breaks. They had to do the clubs, they had to do the circuit. Billie Holiday was practically crucified through her life, through I can't recall the story 110%, but I was pretty sure there was somebody at the FBI, or somebody had a axe to grind against her, and they literally tormented her to the very end, and it was just horrendous. But yeah, you're quite right, because there's not so much from a music point of view, but there's been a few sort of actors who get quite far, and you find out that it's it was someone's is related to a lord, or it was a fashion designer. It's, oh, daddy, I want to tread the boards. Oh, certainly, Felicity, no problem at all. Here's £1,000. Go off and get yourself some boards to tread on. So yeah, I get where you're coming from. So that's why, there's a lot of respect, because you speak really forth. It's really refreshing. It's like, yeah, this is what I want to hear. I want to hear a bit of like, right, I'm going to do it. I want to push forward. But here's another thing. So you started doing the whole musical thing and writing and composing from a very early age. How do you feel about the way that the internet has sort of democratized the way yourself, myself, Iqbal, and Chris could do a podcast? Because it's like trying to sort of mimic a sort of like BBC Radio 4 sort of style sort of thing in the Dylan Thomas house here. So we're trying to copy that sort of style, perhaps, in a way. But the internet's allowed for this huge outpouring of creativity, and do you think it's helped or it's hindered getting your music out there?
Well, I think it's helped and hindered. I think a lot of people just get on, and it's definitely through Instagram. I mean, there's a wide audience now. If you've got a lot of fans or followers, you can put your music out there. It's easy to just put anything and take a picture and put it on and whatever. But I think it was different back in the day when artists had to tour and do gigs and get noticed. Nowadays, I think artists are more reluctant to do it. They think they're going to get discovered really quickly. So I'm not sure they're doing the right thing to get discovered. But that's just my opinion. So I think it's a help and a hinder. I think it's great because it's help people get noticed. It helped me get noticed by a record label in America, and I did a few singles with them.
Well, tell us more about that.
Yeah.
I was just recording on Instagram actually, and then I posted it on my Facebook, and then this one guy just started a new music label, and he's like, "Oh, I really like your voice. Do you want to collaborate?"
What was the name of the label?
It was Hearthplay Records,
okay.
In New York.
Okay.
So I was like, yeah, that's great. So he was a writer as well. So he wrote me a few songs. So we were going to make an album, but he wrote me 2 songs that I recorded and that went out. But I think the problem is with these record labels, I'm not sure that he knew what it was going to take to promote so many artists. But no, it was good. Yeah.
Yeah, but the fact of the matter is, you boil it down, you got noticed, you were picked up from somebody stateside. That's a big hit. It's a big home run, to use a sort of colloquialism from New York.
But that is off social media then?
That was off social media. That was on Facebook.
The impression I get is that you really embrace social media, don't you?
I do now. Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think you can use it to your advantage if you just stick to what you're doing and not get so personal. And political, and
So you mean just stick to the art, essentially? Just stick to your brief
on my Facebook? Yeah, I try. I mean, I try and put a few personal things because I think people like to interact and
see behind the curtain, almost, in a way.
Exactly. I think if you could put a few other pictures or through status updaters about what's going on in your life or what's going on in your mind, I think people like that.
When and how often are you gigging at the moment?
I stopped about a couple of years ago.
Really?
Yeah, I did.
Why? Because that sucks. No offense, that sucks. You should be out there. Okay, so why did you stop?
I stopped. It was getting depressing because it was hard work. It's hard work. A gig is hard work, and you practice, and then you go out there, and then they didn't want to pay as much. So you're trying to compete with people that would go out for like 30, 40 quid when I was charging it only a little bit more, and they weren't willing to pay. So
how much were you charging?
Not that much. Like for a duet, so we were doing 2 45-minute sets. Well, for a duo, I was charging 120.
What, to like go to a restaurant or to a cafe? Yeah, well, that's really good. Yeah, that's a really decent price.
Yeah, and they didn't want to pay it because you had people going out. Say there was 3 of them, and they were doing it for 120. So they do like.
That's made me angry because without sort of going into cover band material, there are some
cover bands.
Thank you, who charge a lot more than that and don't have the level of expertise. as someone who's actually studied jazz. Well, is it? Would you call it a conservatory, or was it just a music school at Leeds?
As a music college.
A music college, okay. Well, okay. So
I think a lot of places they just want music. They're not really focused on what the music is. In certain, not in everywhere.
You've got a hell of a lot more in common with Chris and I than I think we initially thought. But definitely, because you've got a hell of a lot of fire there. But it's really nice to see somebody from another sphere of music coming in going, right, I'm feeling this, and this. And we're like, yeah, we've kind of been feeling that as well, a little bit. So you decided to stop because people were being idiots about the prices. And I don't think that's too much considering to do 2 45-minute sets.
Not at all. It's a lot. I mean, it's a lot of stuff to do for that amount of money. But the problem is, I mean, with singers, we did this one gig. I gig with my friend Deborah Glenister. She's on piano and she also plays the saxophone. So I can't remember where it was now. And there's people sitting in the front, they go, oh, you sound really great, but wouldn't it be great if you had like drums and, all this backing behind you? And I'm like, yeah, but what they really meant was, wouldn't it be great if you had a backing track? Because they're so used to vocalists going around with backing tracks, and I don't usually do that, not for a gig. I mean, for other things I do, but not when I'm
You're not a karaoke singer?
I'm not a karaoke singer. But the thing is, I don't feel comfortable. Don't feel comfortable. I don't like being on my own when I'm in a gig. If I like to kind of like banter with somebody else because I find it nice. I think I don't like being on my own.
I relate to that. That's why I stopped doing the solo stuff, because I could do the solo stuff. I could, get my finger out. But I know what you mean. You kind of want to turn up. If it's just one other person, so you go, phew, that was a tough crowd, wouldn't it? Because otherwise you're sitting going, barman, double whiskey, please. Oh my God. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, I get
well, it's a different thing having backing track, because you have to be a real lead person and do all of that stuff, which I've seen a few musicians, singers with backing tracks, and don't really do all of that. But I never wanted to be one of those types of singers, so I'm not doing it.
Yeah, but that's great, because one day I implore you to get back on it, because one day people are going to go, you know what, Deborah, I'm sick of these backing tracks. Why doesn't somebody just do it? I think that's going to come. I genuinely think that it will come. No, I think you need to get back on it. Sorry, I don't want to sound like you need to get, but I do think you do need to get back on it, because it's a shame to sort of like.
No, I do gig now, but I wait for people to ask me, which they have done. I mean, I did a Maze event the other week, so it's
good.
So
So when you are gigging, where would you go? Is that local or is that further afield normally?
Yeah, that was Signing. But I mean, I have done things in Cardiff. I did the Wash Millennium Centre, so that was cool. So I'd like to do that again.
And what do you make of the local jazz scene then? What's your take on that?
I've kind of been out of it for a few years, I have to be honest. But yeah, I think it's still going.
There's bits and bobs. I mean, I know that the St. James's Jazz Club shut. I think it was last year, wasn't it?
Really? Is that the one by Filoni?
Yeah. They moved to the garage.
It's moved to the garage, but that's where it was, yeah.
But that was like a real, I don't want to say cornerstone.
Old school.
It was old school.
Proper.
How long had that been there for?
Quite a few years, but 10,
Many
15
years. A friend's grandfather, a friend of mine, his grandfather who lives in the Uplands. Well, yeah, Uplands. He is early 90s now. Yeah, he's 91. I think it closed when he was like 89 or something like that. And he'd been going there. Classically trained pianist, loves his jazz, rocks like nobody's business. And he'd been going there since, maybe like his early 20s. He was in his 90s. So he's been there for a good while. And it's, again, one of those things that were just under and overlooked.
It was brilliant. It was a brilliant place to go, because it was like a community. You'd get the same people coming every week, and they made you feel so welcome. And after college, that's where I used to go every Wednesday. And, really welcoming, and they really helped,
Some really cool, old school jazz musicians who knew their stuff.
Absolutely.
We kind of need that back, though. I mean, like we talked on the first podcast about the that'll do attitude of Swansea. I'm sick of it. I genuinely am. It's not because I've had a wee dram, as it were. I am sick of it, because there just needs to be something that's going to push things forward. And sometimes maybe you've got to look back a little bit to the classics. I don't use the classics, but you do need to look back a little bit to the standards.
Well, it's nice having institutions that people are familiar with over the years, isn't it? I think that's why I was a bit disappointed why when St James's Jazz Club shut. But I'm sort of interested in what kind of impact that would have had on the jazz scene. But it sounds like you were kind of moving away from it at that point.
I moved away from it maybe a year or two before it closed. But again, as I said, they opened in the garage, and I think that's actually probably a better venue. I mean, the Liberal Club. I mean, I know,
it was an old school.
It was an old school. It wasn't very nice.
It's got a little bit of the griminess.
It's got the dirt and
everyone
the
likes a bit
fingernail.
of grime.
Well,
St James's
But I think the
Jazz Club
garage
was
is
definitely
probably a better venue for it.
Is that going on at the moment then, Amy?
Yeah.
So when did they do the jazz club at the garage?
I think from last year or year before last, something like that.
I thought it was Noah's as well, wasn't it?
No, they do jazz every Monday.
Right.
And what about the garage? When does that go on? Every Monday?
Every Wednesday.
Every Wednesday, okay.
Tempted to have a little dabble again?
I would. Yeah, no,
You should.
I would.
You should.
I have been out of it for a while, so it'd be nice to get back into it.
So if you were to go back in, do you think you would be more inclined to do this sort of alt country Americana sort of thing? Because what I liked about the stuff that you sing is you don't put on an accent. I really respect that. That's really cool to hear.
No, that's you.
Do people put on attitude?
I don't know. But it's like, I can only speak from the point of view of someone who's been playing metal and heavy music, so, there's nothing, I've done gigs with bands before. It's like, good evening, Bristol. We are Death Corps. This one's called I'm Gonna Kill You, and then they go off and it's just like, oh, brilliant. Where are you from? Yeah, from Bodley Salterton. It's like, oh, there we are then. That's amazing.
You do get that around here, though. I mean, I know, I've been fortunate enough to spend a lot of time in America, and I know people who by birth are Americans, and then you see those kind of country bands that come down here, and they're from, Dunvant, Gowton, wherever, Uplands, and they go into an act, but they put on this accent like they're on Nashville. But and even when they sing, but when you put your voice to the Americana country style, there was no pretentious, there was no pretentious pretending that you were from there.
Yeah,
you took the influence of that native sound.
I see what you see. Yeah,
you do what I mean? You took the native sound, the original sound, and took that and run with it musically.
Yeah.
But then you slapped the Dunvant thing on it, so you know what I mean? You didn't pretend that you were Dunvant, Swansea, not Dunvant, Tennessee. You know what I mean? That's the way it came across to me, anyway.
Oh, that's good. No, I mean, I think I'm not very good at acting, I have to be honest, because it just comes. Everything you see is everything that I feel or whatever is on my face. So I don't think I'd be very good at saying I come from Nashville, because I just could not carry it off. And you're always taught as a singer, if you're trained, that you just don't put on an accent. Which a lot of singers need to be trained these days.
That must burn when you hear that, because it burns me as well.
It's irritating. I remember judging a talent competition, and this one girl was, I can't remember what she was doing, somewhere over the rainbow, and she was doing Eva Cassidy's version. And if you're going to do a version, and I always do, if I'm going to do a pop cover, if I do a copper, if I do...
It's the Swansea copper coming out again.
Tell you what, right? They were there and I told them.
If you do a cover, then you know, when you put your own spin on it. So, you
Absolutely.
do. Yeah. So I was like, well, why don't you just go back to the original version and then work from there? And everyone's going, boo, boo. And I was like, no, I really mean it. But like singers, they kind of copy American artists a lot. And American singers are, I'm sorry to say this, but they have a nasal accent. And if you're not American, then there's no reason why you should have that.
But you've got an interesting point there, because there's this cross-pollination between the British and the American sort of contemporary music, or whatever music we're talking about, because I've noticed certain American bands, when they do the whole punk thing, it's like, good evening, we're from New York, and it's like, oh, don't choke me like a Londoner. And like the classic example with that is Blink-182. So like you listen to, I don't know, Miss You, and then all of a sudden Tom DeLonge will come on and go, where are you? And it's just like, that's not your voice. What are you trying to put on? You don't sound British. It sounds ridiculous. Can you please stop it? So I totally get what you're saying, and I totally respect it. That's a very personal gripe for me, is not singing with your own natural voice or trying to enhance it.
Well, the singing, it's just the way that, you try and emulate people, and I think that's what it is. And so people try and emulate Mariah Carey. I mean, I used to. I could do all of the little trills that she used to do. I used to think I was brilliant. It was great. And then, you get, after a while, it's like, actually, that's really annoying. And, like, no, stop doing it. So you can do a little bit, but, So I think, just having somebody as your idol, you don't have to lose who you are in the process. I think that's the whole point.
Did you ever fall into that trap, though, of kind of early on sort of copying or sort of learning a piece, Ella Fitzgerald or whatever it's going to be? I mean, did you sort of try to sing like her at that time, or?
Oh, of course not them, because they were quite hard to emulate. But the pop singers, I mean, like Whitney Houston and Mariah Carey, they were like my idols. So early on, you would have had some affectation in the performance, then, is it? Yeah, totally.
So when did you start moving away from that part of it and sort of become more comfortable? Sort of maturing within your own voice and kind of finding your own way to sort of deliver your own music.
I think it was over time. It was hard because you kind of like get into that whole, mindset of wanting to be like somebody else rather than being like yourself, and that takes a lot of growing up and maybe just now discovering it.
I gotta say, I wish I'd known you better in school.
I
I really do.
No offense, but you're below me, and you know how older people are.
I'm offended in your apartment.
He's below me as well.
He's below all of us.
He's below us all.
I'm the baby at the table. No, because I don't know if I should get into that, but it's
get into it.
No, I don't. No, because it's just crazy. Because like, how small that place was. I would have seen you about 5 or 6 times in one day. You know what I mean? Like line up outside wherever it was, and we'd all be like taking our forms and whatnot. But I didn't realize that you were. Well, maybe I wouldn't. I
probably wasn't though. I was quite different.
How are you different at the time?
Well, because I'm small, so I think I wasn't.
Yeah, me too. It's okay.
So it took a while to embrace my smallness and accept myself for who I am. So I think I didn't have that much confidence back then. So
I always remember you being a bit of a badass. It's like quite intimidating.
I was not.
You were a bit. You were from an.
He was intimidated by everyone, though, wasn't he? Let's be honest.
Hang on, Amy, bear with me. From an academic point of view, I seem to remember you were a bit of a straight A student, along with
straight A. Okay, I think you have it. I don't know what imagination you're coming up with.
Yeah, but you were doing better than I was. I mean, I'm sure. You were. I'm sure you were.
Yeah, no.
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 Well, you're certainly doing better than
Not
me.
that I can remember. I mean, I was in the choir. That's all I remember.
Do you remember those god-awful seats at Christmas time when we used to have to go down and do those performances and everyone was busting for the toilet?
It was so funny.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was. No, but I was. Yeah, but you. I mean, okay. I mean, your grades were going to be above like a C. I mean, I was a C grade student all the way through. So for me, being in a school like that, it was really intimidating because I didn't fit in with the kids who had money because I didn't really have money, didn't come from money, and I didn't have like the level of intelligence either. So it was kind of like, well, where do I fit in? You know what I mean? So yeah, it's that's kind of what like I was sort of saying. So as I was saying, it's like it's crazy that I'm really impressed. You see, like you've become a really like well-rounded, cool person, and I'm hung up on my skill.
I wasn't a well-rounded person.
I'm not well-rounded. I'm definitely not. That was the first thing you said.
That's a very nice compliment. Thank you very much.
It's true. You've done well.
I think what he's trying to say is that you do not seem as traumatized as he does.
I told you I left
deep-rooted stuff going on.
Yeah, you did. You did. I should have come with you.
You should have, yeah.
But yeah, it's so you might be getting back into the gigging side of things. We're just going to have to sort of wait.
Well, I'll do what I mean. I'm on the radio a lot. Radio 2 College, so I do perform on the radio.
What are you doing at Radio 2 College?
Well, performing. So
Yeah.
I keep on there. I mean, playing like my songs and things like that.
Do you have your own show?
No, I don't. But I'm on Keith Evans' show.
Why not?
Why not?
Why not?
I was
Come
going
on.
to. I do like presenting. I did get into it, actually. I went round. I thought I'd use my kind of influences in the jazz field, and I went round with my video camera and I started interviewing musicians when they came here. I did interview, what's his name? Bass player, Clint Eastwood's son. I was
No way.
Yes.
I know who you mean.
Kyle.
Amazing.
Kyle Eastwood.
Kyle
Oh
Eastwood.
my god, he was amazing.
I would have probably been falling like, hi,
It was
really
amazing.
nice to meet you.
I was like that. It was really intimidating actually because I had my video camera, as I said. but it
In
was on the-
Swansea? He came through Swansea?
Yeah, he did.
He's
This was
come a
2015.
few times actually.
With who?
He's come with his band, so he plays the double bass and electric bass. He is amazing, I have to say.
Is he in his own band then? What does he do?
What's it called? What's his band called?
I can't remember. Kyle Eastwood band.
You know,
The Kyle Eastwood
yeah,
band.
because I wanted to go to the gig. My ex at the time was like, "We really need to go. It's at the I think it was at the Taliesin."
Yeah.
And she was like, "You know, what's that? It's a man whose last name is Eastwood. You should have a bit more respect." But anyway, I didn't get to see him, and but he does come through quite a bit.
He's brilliant. He's lovely. I know. I don't know. That was the only time.
Come on, you can put. You said jazz circles. Hi, yeah, podcast. Yeah.
This is the only reason he's doing the podcast is to actually get into something.
Well, it was completely out of the blue, and I was just lucky because I'd only just started to do the interviews, and a friend of mine knew his agent. So when he came to the Taliesin at the time, so he did hook me up. I'm not gonna lie. So that was kind of cool.
So you mentioned there that you started doing it because of influence.
Well, I started doing it really because I wasn't very good at talking over the microphone. So I thought it would be a good way to get over that phobia, just to talk to random people. So yeah.
Let's go back to that with the influences. What are your influences in terms of maybe jazz and then maybe just songwriting in general?
In jazz, I guess. I mean, I really loved Frank Sinatra. He was it really, and then I guess Gene Kelly and Fred Astaire.
So it's more the vocals as
It's more of
opposed
the
to
vocals.
the musicians.
Yeah, I mean the lyrics and that side of things came later when I started to understand what it was all about. I mean, jazz is for older people. I mean, what on earth are you going to know? You know, from a 7-8-year-old's going to understand about it. So, but I mean, influences, as I said, like Mariah Carey and Whitney Houston and Bon Jovi.
Bon Jovi.
There's nothing wrong with that.
No, I love Bon Jovi.
I mean, I seem no, it's okay. No.
Oh, go on then. You said
Do
it now.
it. Say it.
No, I'm not.
What's
What's his name?
What's his name?
Let's not have that as a running joke because I was happy to take out you and your conspiracy theory debunking. So,
Okay, deal, man, deal.
Yeah, let's not. Yeah,
But back to
quid
your
pro quo.
back to your influences though. When you write the song, I know you say Mariah Carey, Whitney Houston, and whatnot. But when it comes to, do you compose your own music?
Yeah.
So what's your main musical influences when it comes to writing the music as opposed to the lyrics and the delivery of the vocals?
It depends on what mood I am at the time. I mean, You Make Me Believe. I probably started as a kind of a rock and roll by the time I was doing on the piano, and I was trying to figure out what to do with it. And then afterwards, it became a country song. Okay. So I think it can become anything you want.
So your compositions take place on the piano as well, then? Is that primarily where your creative place is then? In
Yes.
front of a keyboard?
Yes.
Wow. Okay.
Sorry, I was just sort of trying to fix something out there. Keyboard. I mean, do you have a piano in the house at all?
I do.
Right, is it an electronic one, or you use it? No,
It's
no.
going to be either an upright or a mini.
I
grand,
imagine
isn't
it's
it?
a little
It's an
upright.
It's gonna be
It
one
is
of the
an
two,
upright. It's
isn't
like
it?
the one in the Dylan Thomas room.
Who tunes your piano for you? Who tunes your piano for you,
Who
love?
tunes the piano?
Who tunes your
I think
piano?
it was for somebody from Wilkes.
Wilt, do you have a piano tuner at the moment? I can put you in touch with a mate of mine who's very good.
He
Can
is
you?
always
Yeah, we do
scouting
need
for
the piano
business,
tuner,
this boy.
Jason, well, are you still in Swansea, aren't you?
Yeah.
Well, he's a Swansea boy. He's Jason Harris. He's excellent. He is. He was the guy who was drafted in to do the piano teching for Elton John. When Elton John came to Swansea, he was also Jamie Cullum's. He was Jamie Cullum's piano tech. He's a guy we should probably think about Jason on the podcast would be.
Jamie Cullum.
No, not Jamie, but Jason. No, I don't know Jamie.
You'll just be broing out all day, man.
Me and Jason.
You're just getting all your mates on, essentially.
That's what we've done.
That's what we've done.
That's what we've done.
Amy's the first real person.
Amy's
we've
our
had
new
here.
mate.
The first proper
Well, we're on
musician.
Facebook, so you know it's all right.
Officially now our new mate.
Yeah. no, Amy's come in and been a badass. I mean, it's like, all right, okay, fine.
So what have you got coming up then, Amy, in terms of, have you got any recorded albums, recordings, I know we've been to the gig thing, but anything else coming up?
Well, maybe you lot can help me. I'm actually looking for a producer because Kevin, Kevin John kind of left me. In the
Kevin
lurch.
John from...
Kevin J used to be in Swansea, and he was my producer on the last 3 singles.
Not Kevin John from The Wave now.
What? No.
What was his name, did you say?
Kevin Jones, sorry.
Jones, I just said Kevin John. Right, I see him half
I think that would have been the problem.
Stadium. I think he's a producer, is he?
It's like you don't want to go to Swansea Sound to get your production.
So you need a producer.
I would like to, yeah. I need a producer.
I'd offer my services. Yeah, well, I mean, she doesn't. I'm not gonna just like. Amy needs to hear what I'm capable of doing. You know, because it again.
If you need a producer, then go to him.
Okay, send me a few stuff, so.
I will. We'll
Send
keep
me
in
your
touch.
CV.
I'm hoping this. I'm hoping
Prove your
that,
worth.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to prove my worth. But the thing is, though, it's like it's intimidating for me because like I can go, oh, I have this idea. I can pull from, you know, what I've done differently. But I mean,
I've given you enough jazz in the last few
I know.
weeks.
I know.
Well, as
So
I
where
said,
to
I
go
don't
from?
do jazz currently.
Oh, well, there we are. Or
For
country.
the 3rd time in the podcast.
What?
Right, poor Amy.
She does country, mate. Come on.
Oh, cheers for the levels on that. I'm gonna have to edit that out. Fantastic.
Whatever genre that Amy chooses to do, I will supply you.
I think
I've
Amy would
learned.
do Southern Gothic quite well.
I do. I love God. You know what? I'm really into it right now.
Okay. So this is like shameless self promotion. Shameless self promotion. Chris and I are going to do something here in the house. We're going to record it and like mic it up in the house and use the acoustic resonance. Oh, that's a stupid word to describe it. The capture the environment of the rooms to recording. Okay, as live. Treat these as rooms. Maybe you should come on and do something with what we're going to do, because I was going to do this like solo singer-songwriter thing, and I approached Chris and I went, I need your help because I'm just going to be getting up going, oh, I'm really sad and I'm on my own and she left me. I'm playing a gig tonight at the Uplands Tavern, it's going to be amazing, yeah, come along and don't forget your razor kits because they're at the front door.
Oh, man, you're really selling this one.
Like, yeah, so I've dragged in Chris. Do you want to come in and like throw some weight around?
Don't have to have razors.
No razors at all. I don't want.
no,
but it's like
that's all right then. Yeah,
if
sure.
like the Southern Gothic thing was something that we were thinking about. Musically. You know, I'm not going to get up and go on stage and go, I left everything in mumbles by the new. I'm not going to do that. You know.
Okay.
What I mean? Thank God. Yeah. But yeah, we should. But I mean.
Yeah, definitely. Be up for that.
Yeah, and then maybe
I'm very
we could-
open-minded.
We can throw some ideas. Dude, if you want me to produce you, I'd be more than happy to.
She does some pro bono work anyway, mate. So that would be.
Yeah.
No, the
The
idea...
youngest kid in the room. Why not?
We're not that young. I won't say your age. It's not that young.
37.
Okay, so there you go. That means I'm older than you. Oh my God.
What's wrong with that?
I'm younger than you all.
Well, I'm getting. Let's not get.
What?
Yeah.
You don't look the same age as I do. Trust me. You look
Do I look
younger.
older?
You look younger. You do. Okay. You do. I'm haggard. I am haggard. I'm completely haggard, Amy.
And a mess.
And a mess.
Well, maybe
wow,
it's because
I
of all the
love this
razors that you're trying to, you know.
No. I'm not gonna. No, that was like. Come on. I'm not gonna get very far if I try to encourage my audience to commit suicide. By the record. Oh no, you can't because you can't put your hand in your pocket. You severed them in.
Jonestown massacre.
Can we even use that? I don't know. I'm
Yes.
gonna have to edit it.
We're
out.
fine. No, the point was that, like Simon said, he wanted to do this thing. He's going to approach. We're going to record it here, and yeah, I think it'd be cool. I think that's a very interesting idea spawned right here, right now in this. You know,
Well, this could be interesting, like for people listening into the podcast, obviously, because you can, if something comes from this, you can go back and go, hang on a minute. You guys always talk about where's the genesis of an idea, and now you can actually hear the genesis of the idea sort of slowly accumulating.
I'm interested to have an idea what your thoughts were about your album. I mean, because I think this house, the look of the house might lend itself quite well to that.
Well, my thoughts on it. Well, like, okay, so I'm gonna ask to do sort of an experiment. If we just like for a second not say anything. So that's the science. The room itself, it's got a high ceiling. So it's kind of like from an audio point of view, sorry, like from an engineering point of view, it's quite nice. It's quite a nice room. You know, it's got a nice sort of feel to it. Why not use the house as an instrument within itself? It's going to sound pretentious. A lot of this sort of stuff comes from when I was doing the MA, where you kind of have to look at composers who aren't contemporary, well, not contemporary is the wrong word, who are really sort of twiddly beard, sort of, oh yes, and I sat in a bath of meringue, and I plugged in a set.
Another good band name.
Yeah, plugged in
Another bath of
meringue. And they come up with all these sort of weird sort of beardy ideas. But when I was starting off with the whole engineering mixing thing, I was thinking about the way that say like a room is treated. So you've been into a recording studio, so you've got your control room where all the magic happens, and then you have your live room, okay? And there's different rooms. It's like, oh, put Amy in the BBC Hall in Swansea, it's going to sound amazing because the reverberance, or let's put her in a dead room so then we get close mic her and get it all this. So I thought, well, that's kind of like if you were painting a picture, that's your canvas, that's what you're putting it on. So it's like, well, I quite like my canvas to be a little bit, not messed up, but just not as perfect. I don't want it to be a perfect piece of A4 paper. I kind of want to have it a few blemishes because it might add to it, which kind of goes back to the whole thing that Ryan is doing. It's like sort of this from last week's podcast where he produces a piece of artwork and these magical things happen, these nuanced moments where, you know, he just takes the roller and does it, and then, wow, it's this image and whatnot. So that's what I was thinking. Sorry to sort of go off on a tangent. That's what I was thinking about using the house. You're going to have bleed from outside. You're going to have noises come in. Maybe somebody accidentally opens a door. And it's those little moments of humanity of like, oh, wow, you're listening to, hang on a minute. There's that moment where the door comes in. That's what I want. That's what I want to hear on the record. And the example that sticks with me, I think I can't remember which Zeppelin track it is, but a lot of bands these days, they'll go in the studio, and if there's a squeak or something in the kit or something like, say, like the drum kit, they'll dismantle the kit and they'll try and fix it to get rid of the sound because they want it to be perfect. And on Bonham's kit, I can't remember what Zeppelin track it is, you can hear the squeak from the springs. And if you listen to it enough, you start going, oh man, there's a squeak. Oh, that's his foot going down on it. And that's the humanity coming into play, and that means a hell of a lot more.
It's so simple. You get that in acoustic things, you know, when they're moving their hands on the neck of the guitar, and they're moving, you know, that scratch of the, you know, the fingers on the grooves of the strings. It's all natural. Whatever's natural, it should be applied, unless it's always a catastrophic mistake. And yeah, but natural sounds best. And like on our in my band Minds, our latest song, there's a pedal, I use a lot of delay, and I'll move my hands and it does that acoustic scratch on the string with the finger, and it just adds to the song.
Yeah, no, definitely.
So,
I mean, a lot of music today, they try to make it perfect, isn't it? It has to be perfect level for radio, can't go above a certain level, or the length has to be perfect as well. It's just all a little bit controlled and repetitive.
So you wouldn't, if you were writing a song, Amy, then you wouldn't cap it in terms of it has to be this amount of time. It has to be
done
within 3
songs,
minutes.
and one of my songs was Time. That was 5 minutes, and what I did was I actually sent it, that particular song. It wasn't done, but I sent it kind of a raw version to a radio plugger. Is that one of those BBC radio pluggers?
Right.
And they were like, well, one, it's too long, and two, it's not radio friendly. And I was like, what's radio friendly? I didn't really understand it back then. Or
what was their example of radio friendly?
Radio friendly, I think, is some. I mean, mine had maybe one time change in it, so I guess a radio friendly song is no time change. I don't know.
So what do they do?
Just 4/4 all the way through.
Well, yeah, and it's something that's.
So that's the formula then, is it?
Yeah, to be radio friendly, you can sing along, like easy to sing along. I think that's what radio friendly is, because a lot of my songs, and it's like in my mind, I really thought that might be quite radio friendly, but apparently it's not either. So I really don't know what it is.
It's like controlling an art form, and an art form should be absolutely free to do what you wish.
Though, isn't it? It's the nonsense of trying to be as commercial as possible, and you just don't stay true to your art, do you? I mean, I've never really got that. I did want to ask one question, actually, going back slightly. I've got a fairly strong opinion about the educational route when you go to university, or you do your A-levels, go to university, you do a creative writing degree or creative writing masters and do a PhD, and then you get a placement in some sort of publishing house. That's the route, isn't it, for poetry, right? Which is my kind of background. I was thinking about this before you came on. It was like, do you really need a formalized educational sort of route for music? But I think you've kind of half answered that in a way, isn't it? Because I think for yourself, I mean, you do hone your art to a certain amount and the skills. Yeah. But I mean, do you think you really need that educational route to get on and get forward?
I think everyone's different, and I think for a lot of people, it's just to get focused. And it's having, about what you really want to do. I mean, for a lot of people, it's not. You just go out there and play and, just do it that way. So, yeah, I mean, I think for me, it was great because I got to meet new people as well. I don't think being in Swansea would, have done that at that time. I didn't know much about jazz. So actually being in the college did give me a broader sense of what it was about.
Do you think to be successful in Swansea, you've got to essentially get out of Swansea to some level?
Yeah, I think so. Or not, you know what, these days, everything comes to you. So, no, not really. I mean, now with social media, I don't think you need to. I think it does help because it's nice, but you don't have to.
I think that it's the Swansea mindset, which as I will refer to listeners of the first podcast in the series of the Sullen Art Podcast series 1, it's the that'll do mentality. And I
thought you were going to say something else.
Go on, what do you think I was going to say?
I thought you were going to say about Dylan Thomas essentially leaving the town.
Always back to DT.
We've got to throw him in. We've got to throw him in there, haven't we, really? I mean, this is the house. We're actually sitting in the front parlour.
Yeah, but the thing is, I keep saying this to you, he'd love it. If he was here, this is what he'd want. He'd want it to be dragged forward, not dragged forward. He wouldn't want, he'd be sitting there going, why are you still going on about the same things? He'd want it to move forward. He'd want it to progress. No true artist just wants to stay stagnant. It's like, go on, Dylan, do that one about not disappearing into the night. That one,
I don't know how he'd cope with you boys drinking. I think you drink more than him.
That's a lie.
Certainly on your whiskies, mate. I've seen it. I've seen the damage you do.
What, are you referring to Friday night?
Yeah.
Yeah, so this is interesting. Go on. We only had 3 doubles.
Well, his famous phrase was that I've had 18 straight whiskies. I think it's a record. I've seen you drink more than that. Yeah. He's definitely had more than that.
I don't drink whiskey.
Well, I was pointing to Simon, really, but...
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, but, I mean, at the same time... I think he would. I think he would have gotten on fine with it. It's the whole spirit. This is the whole reason why we're doing it here, is we're doing it in the spirit of. So it's a case that, with this sort of thing, it's moving the whole identity of what Dylan Thomas is about forward by giving someone like Amy or whoever an opportunity to speak about their art, to speak about their craft, to push it forward.
Oh, nice reference there.
Thank you.
But hitting on what you said earlier, I think that you can move forward without having to move location-wise. I think there's nothing to stop you from doing all the things you want to and still staying in Swansea, so to speak. I think a lot of people think that you haven't travelled, then you haven't, got the best out of everything, but that's not necessarily true.
Yeah, I mean, I think the technology's there, right? To be able to do that, particularly with social media now anyway, and the quality of recordings you can put out there. But that's not always been the case. But I think you are unique in that sense that you will, you're not out on social media platforms doing political stuff or making, general inane comments, and most of us do when we're on there. Well, I certainly do.
All right, what's the most inane comment you've made?
Oh God!
Come on, close to the mic as well.
Let's not go into that.
One thing I would like to ask you though, Amy, you talked about a lot of influences in terms of music, vocalists. When you write, do you have any outside influences from music?
Outside influences?
Yeah, whether it be anything, nature, your back garden, a newspaper, whatever. Do you have any other kind of influences that are not musical?
Oh, gosh. I don't think I've ever been asked that question. I'll have to think about that. I do love nature. I love flowers.
Yeah.
I mean, does the, locale as it were, influence your writing, for instance? I mean, Swansea, the Gower.
Yeah.
Oh, definitely.
that
I mean, I
kind
love
of
the
thing,
sea.
or even your
Yeah.
upbringing, the cultural kind of happenings in the city and your family or whatever.
Interesting. What were you going to say? You love the sea?
I love the sea and I love the Gower. I think Swansea is a beautiful place, and I think we don't, we're
Know
not,
what we got?
huh?
Don't know what we got?
We don't know what we got, and we're not appreciating it because we're always here, so we see it, and it does rain a lot, so we don't appreciate it less. But on a sunny day, it's absolutely beautiful, and it could be somewhere like some foreign city that people go to, and people do actually come to visit, and we're like, why are you here? But actually, it is really lovely.
Yeah.
So-
Yeah, I met a couple from Stoke once in Oxwich, and they said to me, I asked them that question, what are you doing here? And they said, and they summed it up within 3 words, I'm from Stoke. And I went, all right.
Apologies to anybody from Stoke who's listening to the podcast.
Absolutely
It's a
no
very
apologies from
very nice
Stoke.
place.
But they said, we come down to see the sea, and you probably pay thousands of pounds to fly in a plane to go and see the sea.
Like my
I
dad
thought-
said, we live where people come on holiday.
That's what my dad said. Why are you stealing? And you can go back and listen to that on episode 1 of the Sullen Art Podcast. But has your dad said that as well?
That's what all our dads say.
They
Isn't it?
probably, yeah.
Surely.
But it's true, though. It
that,
is true.
Is that when
Perhaps they did try to sort of
be funny?
be funny
Yeah,
or
you
try to
should probably
no,
know.
don't bother.
So, before we wrap this whole thing up, Aim,
Yeah.
if anyone is interested in finding out more about you, social media, blah, 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 how can they find out about you? What's the addresses, Instagram, Facebook, all that?
And I've got a website, so it's www.amysinha.com, or Facebook, just look me up, Amy Sinha. Instagram, it's at real Amy Sinha, and then on Twitter, it's singing Sinha, where Sinha is Sinha.
So, Instagram is real Amy Sinha,
At real Amy Sinha, yes.
which alludes that there might be a fake Amy Sinha.
They might be, so I thought I may as well, get in quickly and put real Amy Sinha.
So, they're everything everybody could get you on.
Yes.
Well, I look forward. Hopefully, we can get you up here and we can do this once Simon sorts out.
Well,
what he wants
there
us to
is
do.
something else, obviously, because we do. We got a bit of time left. We're not going to try and push things and whatnot, but we have organised a gig which is coming up in July. So we were initially for this podcast going to record you doing some stuff in the house. I think maybe, can I put this to a vote with you two? How about, this sessions thing that we were talking about before with Frequency House?
Frequency House Sessions.
Frequency House sessions. Would you like to do one? Would you like to come in and do something quite tasteful in the house? Because we've already got someone lined up for July, and it's like a small intimate gig. It would be what I think is about 20, 25 people were, so it's very, very select. Oh yes. Very select crowd
Wow.
coming in. Could we get you out of retirement to come and do something like that? If it was like a really
I'd use the word hiatus.
hiatus, okay. Can we get you out of hiatus for that? Yeah.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I like
So
that.
is that a confirmation on the podcast that we're going to get you to do
I'll just
No
quickly write
pressure.
something out. You
right?
can sign that. in a
Yeah,
minute.
get it to write. Sign it.
No pressure. We do it off mic when everything's sound.
Yeah, but I think that would be really good. I think that would be really nice, because if Mark comes on, we get Amy, and then we got Quish Cable coming on.
But who was Mark again? Just run me through that one.
I'll do it. We'll do it off the.
We'll do it off the
We'll do it off the air. But Mark's coming down. Mark's gonna be good, and I'm hoping Amy will come along to that. It'd be really nice, because that would be really cool, because you could see
Yeah.
how it's set up and if you're comfortable with it.
Yep.
Because that's the other part of the podcast. We really wanted to put some of your music in, but I think after talking about tonight, chatting to you, to do you a proper service with it, we should dedicate a session to it. I think that's
100%.
because I do want Amy to
As
come
long
back.
as Amy wants to.
I want Amy to
obviously.
come back more often. There's like
Amy I just like know that
Yeah.
Amy's sounding very quietly at the moment. It's like, what's happening in her head?
I'm listening,
Who
I'm
knows?
taking it all
I just
in
hear
and,
Simon
absorbing
talking a
it.
lot about you playing a session, and it's like,
I want Amy to. I want all of our guests that we're going to have on, unless they're horrible. You know what I mean? To come back, I just do, because it's quite nice.
I don't just
Mine's
have
on
minds
it,
to
I
play in
think.
here. Yeah, Jesus Christ. Yeah.
No, I do. I said to Ryan last week. I mean, you're here every week. You're part of Frequency House.
I
So is
own
Ryan.
it.
You own
I
it.
own it.
Yeah.
Yeah, wrap things up. Amy, thank you so much for coming in. And I generally, if you do, I look forward to working with you. if and when we record.
Oh, well, thank
Thank
you
you.
very much. And thank you for having
I
me.
hope this hasn't been as painful as you thought it might be.
No, it's been even more painful.
And with that, thank you and good night.
Good night.